We are going to get a little bit scary today.
Because we are talking about wax.
I don't know what it is, but there are so many people that are afraid of using wax to seal their pieces of furniture. And today, I'm here to make wax a lot less scary. In fact, if you spend so much time making your piece absolutely beautiful, I guarantee wax is the perfect top coat to show off all that hard work that you put into your piece. Let's get started with how to work with wax.
So first, let's talk about what is wax. Wax is a protective top coat that you can apply to anything that is painted with a clay-based or chalk paint or even milk paint base. And if you don't apply it, you run the risk of your entire paint job coming off because those products are water-based. So if it gets wet, your product will be ruined. Wax helps seal it. I like to use DIY paint wax because the ingredients are all natural and that makes it easy to apply. DIY wax comes in a wide range of colors and it adds drama to your pieces. Today, though, we're just sticking to the basics, which is clear wax. Once you've mastered that, if you're interested in learning more about applying colored wax or other top coats, please click on the link to the video above. Let me give you a little background about the piece I'm working on. One morning I awoke to a beautiful sunrise, and I was determined to grab my paints and kind of recreate it in a mirror. I used all DIY paints and did some blending techniques, and I did it all live on my Saturday morning lives on Facebook that are 9 a.m. every Saturday. The colors I used to achieve this were DIY Water Lily, Kissing Booth, DIY Cowgirl Coral, and DIY White Swan.
It's time to stop fearing wax. You now just need to bite the bullet and wax something. You will be amazed by the results and how much the wax will bring your new piece to life. Today I'm using DIY clear wax from DIY Paint. Over the years, I've used a lot of brands of wax, and DIY paint wax is different because it's all natural. The ingredients in here you can actually read, and one of them is love. Look at it up close. See? Do you see how I can run my finger along and pull up wax? That's because DIY wax is super smooth and luscious. Most other brands of wax, they're hard. And you need a lot of elbow grease to smooth this, but not DIY wax. And that's why I love it so much. I even know people who use DIY wax on dry hands because it's all natural. It's good stuff. All right, so to get started waxing your piece, I always put my wax on a paper plate. I offload my wax. That's the official term. Write that one down. And the reason I do that is I do not want to contaminate my beautiful clear wax. When I apply this wax to my piece, the paint is water-based, and that means that some of the pigment might come off onto my wax brush. If I were to dip it back into this container, I could get a little purple in here. And if I'm doing a white piece, that's not a good idea. So highly recommend you offload your wax. The next step is what to apply it with. You can use a lint-free rag. In fact, that's how I got started. What I like to use are old washcloths, or this is an old baby diaper that have been washed a lot of times, so they're not gonna get any lint or gross stuff on my piece. And literally, you just dip it in and you can rub it on. Ta-da! If you really get into this waxing thing, you might want a brush. It makes it a lot easier to control.
Finding the perfect wax brush will save you time and energy. There are a lot of brushes to choose from, and I sell Paint Pixie and DIY paint brushes. But pretty much when you're searching for a wax brush, there's two things to consider. First, do you want a long handle or a short handle? I will tell you, Over the years, I have changed my mind on this and I now prefer a short-handled brush. It can get into tight spaces and it's a lot lighter to work with. The other thing to consider is what type of bristles do you want to use? Do you want to use all natural or synthetic? Frankly, for waxing brushes, I like the all natural. They seem to wash a little easier, but there's not too much of a difference. One of my favorite wax brushes right now is actually a stencil brush. It is the JRV large stencil brush. I like it because it's a little bit smaller than all the other wax brushes and also a lot lighter. If you're having a hard time getting into tight spaces to apply wax, I also encourage you to try the smaller JRV stencil brushes. They work really well. To purchase any of the products that you're seeing me use here today, you can shop my online store at shoptheturnedleg.com, or if you're local, you can visit my booth at Plaza Antiques and Collectibles Mall in Lincoln Park, Michigan.
I keep my wax brushes in Ziplocs. Did you see that? And that's so I don't have to rewash my wax brush every time I use it. Only if they get really filthy do I wash them. So my wax brush is good, it's set to go. And you're gonna dip it into your wax. You don't need too much. And just rub it on. Now, there's no set pattern on how to do this. You just wanna cover it. You will tell that it is covering because see the darkness? See the wax freak out? That's what this is called. The minute you apply wax to DIY paint, it's gonna go super dark and it might freak you out, but don't let it freak you out. This is completely normal and it will lighten as it dries. I'm gonna keep applying the wax onto the smear and answer some common questions. One of the questions I am often asked is how long does the paint have to dry before I apply wax? Well, the paint just has to be dry, and usually with DIY paint, it's about 20 to 30 minutes depending on humidity.
The great thing about DIY paint is you can tell when it's dry because it lightens as it dries.
Then you apply your wax, and there's no set rule about how. A lot of people say, well, what strokes do I need with my wax brush? And I've been to places that have said you have to do circles. You don't have to. They've also said, oh, you have to go back and forth. You don't have to. You just want to make sure that your wax is covering your piece. And when you look up close, you want to make sure that all of the sections are getting filled with wax and this color change is occurring. That's all you have to do. You also don't want to apply too much wax. If you're seeing it globbing up in certain areas, or it's like a really heavy coating on it, you want to grab your rag that you keep nearby and just kind of wipe it back because it's a lot harder to remove wax once it's dried. So make sure if you're getting excess wax, you remove it before it sets in. If you're having a hard time getting into tight areas, this piece doesn't have them, but you can use a rag with wax. I've also been known to use a little small brush, like a stencil brush or even a Q-tip. Once your piece is completely covered, you're gonna let it dry. How much wax do you need? Well, for very small items, sometimes you can get away with just one coat of wax. For larger items, I always recommend, this is a bigger piece, or for furniture, you want to put 2 coats of wax on your piece. And then, this is the important stuff. If you really want to see what wax can do, you have to put 2 coats on and wait. I mean, you can buff wax the minute it's dry, but it's not going to look as nice. At least I don't think so. So you want to wait until the next day.
While we're waiting for wax to dry, I want to address another question I'm asked quite frequently. What if you have to paint over something that is waxed? The big rule in furniture painting is wax is last, but let me show you what to do when your piece needs repair or touch-up like this one.
This piece was painted in DIY Paint Farm Fresh, but it had a little spill at my antique mall and got damaged, so I had to bring it home for a quick little patch, repair, and paint. Luckily, when I tried to paint over the piece with Farm Fresh, which I did, you'll see there's a lighter area where I've done some touch up, and then this darker spot is part of the original finish. I was able to paint over with no problem. If you're noticing that the wax coating underneath is repelling the paint, just use a little mineral spirits to remove some of the wax and paint as normal. Then you can get painting. So there's 2 coats in the touch-up area, and we're just gonna apply the wax.
Some areas, because it already has wax on it, are not going to take in hardly any wax at all. The newly painted areas will absorb the most wax and experience the wax freakout. So right now, you're seeing some spots that are a lot darker than others. 2 coats of wax will be applied to the entire piece, and as things dry, it will all even out.
Are you enjoying this video? Hopefully you're learning some tips and tricks to make your next waxing project successful. If you are, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Also, if you hit the bell, you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. All of this helps me to continue to help others to salvage, repurpose, and create. It is the next day and it is time to buff. Remember, you can buff right after the wax dries, but it'll have a matte finish and you're not going to get the ultimate shine that you really want. This wakes up all the colors of DIY paint and shows all of your hard work. So buffing is quite simple. Once it's dry, you can grab a lint-free cloth and just rub. That easy. But it's a lot of elbow grease, and if you follow me a lot, I have issues with my elbow with all the junking and painting and heavy lifting of furniture. So I'm always looking for an easier way. There are other tools that will help you if you really get into painting a lot of furniture. I mean, start with the rag and then upgrade if you really like it. One of the things I like is a buffing brush. This is Buffy from Paint Pixie. It's great on small projects. It works nice and fast. You get a shine quickly. If you're working on larger projects, you can also use the Buff from Paint Pixie, which is larger, which means you're going to cover more area and get your projects done faster. But those are great. And I did have a buffing brush for a really long time, but my new favorite thing, and perhaps it's a little bit of overkill on this project, is this buffing attachment that goes on my drill. It is so simple. You just put it on your drill and buff. It's amazing what the results are. I will give one word of caution on this. Depending which way you screw it in and which way your drill is rotating, it might unscrew. So then just change the direction that your drill is rotating so you don't keep losing your buffing attachment. Feeling a little better about wax? I sure hope so. I hope this video has inspired you to use wax as your top coat on your next project. If you still have a question about waxing, please put it in the comments below. If you really get brave, maybe you'll even try colored wax. It can really add so much depth to your finished piece. Thanks so much for watching and happy painting.
Let's take a look at how that little end table turned out and look at some other beautifully waxed pieces. Waxing really makes the difference.